And now, please welcome our speaker, Reverend Joanne.
Well, thank you for that. But before I begin, I'm going to ask Karen Nestingen to come forward and share a little something with us. Karen? Let's give her a hand. She's handicapped.
Not really. You know, a couple of months ago, I talked about how I listened to that little voice and I avoided a really nasty situation. Well, this week I was on an artist retreat in southern Minnesota. And I get up every morning, and the reading today on joy, I get so much joy from walking in the morning by myself. This retreat is on 500 acres, nature. I mean, it is the most beautiful place in the world. And I got up that morning and I was walking, and the dew was still on the grass, and I was going down a really steep slope, and my little voice real clearly said to me, "Be careful." And I was very careful going down that hill. And I had a very nice walk in the morning. And then I walked and did some hiking and kind of spent the day out in nature like I love there. And in the afternoon, some friends and I wanted to go for a walk down to the river. And my little voice said, "Maybe you have walked enough today." Well, I didn't want to hear that. And I really get a lot of joy out of walking down to the river, and I was with some friends and I kind of knew the path, and so I walked down to the river. And I was paying attention, but then coming back up, there were rocks, and we were walking on kind of a rocky slope, and there was grass, and there were roots under the grass. And my right toe got stuck on a root that I didn't see, and I tripped and landed on my elbow, and I fractured my elbow. And, you know, it took me maybe a couple of hours to realize I didn't listen to, I listened to the little voice in the morning, and I don't know what I avoided on that grassy slope, but I know what I didn't avoid in the afternoon. So the message is, always listen to your little voice, even when it's so quiet, because there's other people talking around you.
Thank you, Karen. What I like about our New Thought message, and I think I say this probably every Sunday, is that it's practical. This isn't where we go get a shot in the arm and then we go home and do our thing. This is something we live, breathe, and use every single day, or not. So thank you, Karen, for sharing that. October is the month of fall. Not that kind of fall, but this month we're talking about falling in love with life, and that's kind of what our message is every week, that we want to fall in love with life and all the good that implies. Now, Rumi has a lot to say on this subject, but I'm not going to start with Rumi. I'm going to share some stuff that Neil Donald Walsh says. Now, if I ever say Neil Diamond Walsh, I say that all the time. I cannot get Donald in there instead of Diamond, but we're talking about Neil Diamond Walsh. Isn't he the guy? Neil Donald Walsh, the guy that wrote Conversations with God. Yeah. Anyway, he writes this: "Life was meant to be happy." Do you believe that? It's true. It doesn't seem like it when you look around, but it's true. Life was meant to be happy. You were meant to be happy. And if you are happy, you're meant to be happier. And even if you're very happy, you can even be happier. How happy? Just how happy can you be? Well, you can be happier than God. Now, I heard a lady once describing a gentleman who's very wealthy, and she said, he's got more money than God. And that's how I mean this. This is Walsh talking. He says, I mean to use the ultimate superlative. You can be happier than God. That's what we're here for, not to be walking around in ashes and sackcloth and all that kind of stuff. We're meant to be happy. And this book that I'm quoting from is called Happier Than God, by the way. He goes on to say, many people believe that life was meant to have a lot of pain in it. Suffering should be offered up to God. It should be endured in silence. That earns you points in heaven. Our culture has so completely adopted this idea that some people don't want to be happy all the time. When you talk about how they can be happier than God, they start to get fidgety or uncomfortable. They warn you you're being unrealistic, or maybe you're being blasphemous. They'll tell you that life was meant to be unhappy. Life's a trial. It's a school, the school of hard knocks. No pain, no gain, and all that. People in large numbers believe this. And when you say to them that life was never meant to be unhappy, that no one ever has to be unhappy, they look at you cross-eyed. They don't know what to do with that. They don't know where to go with it. Often they tell you where to go with it. So, with New Thought, we call that race consciousness. You know, all those ideas that float out there, that life is hard, we're meant to suffer, people can't be trusted, these kind of negative stuff, those are the weeds in that garden we have that we didn't plant. That comes from that race consciousness. They're out there. We have to watch for those weeds, and we got to pull them out when we see them. We really don't need to buy into those ideas. We are meant to be happy, meant to be outrageously, deliriously, and ecstatically happy. That's how happy we're meant to be. Walsh suggests that the idea should be shouted from the rooftops and the podiums and the pulpits. He writes, let the word go forth from this time and place. Happiness is your natural state of being, and you can occupy that space all the time. You never have to be unhappy again. Now, this doesn't mean that you're never going to be sad. He says, sadness and happiness are not the same thing. So, am I happy all the time? Is Walsh happy all the time? No, we got our ups and downs like anybody else. But I'm happier today than I used to be because I know that this is where I am in my life, that there's a power in the universe, it experiences life in, through, and as me. That power within me gives me the opportunity to co-create my life, that power within. How can we be totally unhappy when we have that? We can speak our word. We can change our circumstance. Life is meant to be happy. And if you believe that, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you believe you're meant to suffer, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy too. So I would like to invite you today. I'm not big on this, asking you to do stuff, stand up and do stuff. So I'm not going to ask you to stand up, but I am going to ask you to do this if you don't hit anybody. Life is meant to be happy. Life is meant to be happy. And that's the last time I'm going to do it. But there's another affirmation that's really good too, and that is, it is my divine right to fall in love with life. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's what we're here for. We're not here to suffer. We're to fall in love with life. So, as Celeste said, we're talking about today, in your light, I learn how to live. And these are words of Rumi. Now, Rumi was a Sufi poet. And I hope you get this right. I'm saying it off the top of my head. But Sufism, I believe, is like a sect of Islam. And of course, a lot of people in your world probably have a certain idea about what Islam is and what Islam isn't. And it's not always a good picture. But when you think about Rumi and read his writings, they're readable. They're readable. They're like somebody wrote them yesterday. They're just very, very simple, very clear, and very inspirational. He says, "In your light, I learn how to love. In your beauty, how to make poems. You dance inside my chest when no one sees you, but sometimes I see you. And that sight becomes this art." That's what allows him to do what he does. So a lot of these poems that Rumi wrote are directed to his higher power. He's talking to his higher, he's writing poems to his higher power. So today we're talking about this little piece that he wrote. We're talking about falling in love with life. The idea that God's light, that, we're connecting to that Creator, that light that is within us, and remembering that that is that very creative power experiences life in, as, and through its creation. And it does that little dance inside of us. And when we get a glimpse of that, that's when we can do our greatest work, whether it's art or whether our greatest work is showing love to other people, whether it's doing the songs that Victoria and Scott do. Whatever it is that you love and time stops when you do it, that's God's light shining in you, and that's what you can radiate to other people. And this is a basic New Thought teaching we have here, and that is the truth that God's ever-present reality is as, in, and through its creation. It's not, God isn't sitting on a cloud somewhere that we have to hope he's in a good mood when we beg for something. No, that very Creator is within us, and we simply, by the way, we have a visitor today, Pat Williams. He's the minister from Unity in Golden Valley, and we were talking a little bit this morning, and he was mentioning how he enjoys some of the works of Neville. And I think, Neville was this kind of guy. He was always looking at the end result. What is it that I want out of life? And that's what we're talking about here. We've got this power within us, and we let that power within us manifest those things that we desire. That power is within us, not off somewhere. So I'm going to quote a verse from the Gospel of Thomas. Now, if you go home and look in your St. James Bible, you're not going to find the book of Thomas. I'm sure that's what you do after church, is you dig out your James. It's not in there because it didn't make the cut. If you ever want to have an interesting group study, I think it would be kind of fun to experiment and talk about, where did the Bible come from? Who put it together? How did they decide what goes in it? Well, Thomas didn't make the cut. I'm reading a book called Mary Magdalene. Her book didn't make the cut either. Interesting book. So, in the book of Thomas, I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood, I'm there. Lift up a stone, you will find me there. And this you hear repeated by different people over the ages. And many people believe that, yeah, God's everywhere. God's everywhere. You can't nowhere where God is not. Except that when you start talking about God is within them, and we find this in prison, they're like, Leif and I do, he and Karen go to Stillwater. I go to Lino Lakes with Colleen and with Monty. And a lot of times these guys, the guys that come to our circles, I think, really have a good attitude. They want to make changes in their life. They will life to lift them up. And, boy, they have a hard time. They can maybe forgive somebody else, but to forgive themselves is sometimes very difficult for them. And so we know that this is so important to be able to forgive ourselves as well as to forgive everyone else. And to do that, I think it helps to know that God is within us. A German mystic of the late 1200s, Meister Eckhart, said, "God is nearer to me than I am to my own self. My life depends upon God's being near me. He's also present in a stone or a log of wood, only they don't know it." You know, kind of similar to what Thomas was saying. So, you know, where do I start? What's the difference between me and God? I'm not everything God is, and yet I am of the same essence. And to me, the idea of thinking about spirit as an ocean. If spirit is the ocean, I'm a drop in that ocean, or I'm a wave on the ocean. I'm of the same essence as the ocean. Certainly not the whole thing, but of the same essence. And because of that, that's why our prayers are so powerful. That's why our thoughts are so powerful. Our expectations are so powerful. We've got that power within us to create our lives by our thoughts. Keeping them positive and constructive is so important. So, how do we fall in love with life? Well, we realize that what is within us is greater than anything in our surroundings. And one of my favorite quotes, if you remember, is despite appearances, there's something moving in the unseen for my greater good. Isn't that lovely? Despite appearances, no matter what my problems are, I know there's something moving in the unseen, of course with a capital U, for my greater good. How comforting that is, and how empowering that is. So within me, what is within me is greater than anything in my surroundings. And we realize that what is within us is more powerful than any circumstances. So we know that that's more powerful than our circumstances. We know that it's more powerful than our histories, more powerful than our past, more powerful than our obstacles, more powerful than our challenges. How empowering that is for us to know that, a power within us that's greater than any obstacle that comes up. History, upbringing, failures, obstacles, challenges, something within me is greater than that. Pure light, pure love, pure beauty, pure potential. You know, that's what that's what we want as our end result. That's what we're looking for. We look at our lives, we're unhappy, I need love. Well, how can we need love? We are love. We look at our lives and we look at our checkbook and say, oh, I don't have enough in my checkbook. Need abundance. How can you need abundance? You are abundance. That's one of the God qualities, is abundance. We cry out for compassion and understanding and kindness, and we are those things. How can we cry out for them? They are us. We are of that same essence, the ocean, the wave. So now, these are ideas you can fall in love with, I think. So we may not always experience this good stuff. We may not always recognize all that power we have, particularly when we're going through a challenge. You know, going through a challenge, all of a sudden the power kind of slips away from us, and we're into the fretting and worrying and whatnot. And yet that is exactly the time we have to take a deep breath, go within. If you need to, you go to a quiet place and just call on that power within and say, I know there's a power within me that created everything and everyone, and I accept that power right now as I speak my word for healing or for abundance or for happiness or for joy, whatever it is. And when do you want to do that? Well, should we just wait till things are perfect to do that? I don't think so. The time to do it is before you've lost the 50 pounds or the 80 pounds. Time to do it is before the stars are all aligned. Time to do it is now. Now is when we can fall in love with life. We don't have to wait for us to get the perfect job or fall in love with the perfect person, finally get our house built or our church built. You don't have to wait for that. Now is the time to fall in love with life. And here's a paraphrase of what Rumi said. In God's light, you learn how to love. In God's beauty, you make poems. God dances inside your chest where no one sees. But sometimes you do, and that sight becomes this art. This art is your life. So fall in love with that light within. So it's a kind of a simple message about falling in love with life. That power that created everything is within us. It's good, it's all love, and that's who we are. And I'm going to end today by sharing a story with you. This was a story that was in the Los Angeles Times a while ago, written by somebody named Ann Wells. And it I think, speaks to this. My brother-in-law opened the bottom drawer of my sister's bureau and lifted out a tissue-wrapped package. He said, "This is not a slip. This is lingerie." He discarded the tissue, handed me the slip. It was exquisite. Silk, handmade, trimmed with cobweb of lace. The price tag had an astronomical figure on it. It was still attached. He said, "Jan bought this the first time we went to New York, at least 8 or 9 years ago. She never wore it." I don't know, my hair on my arm stands up when I say that. Do you know people like this? I mean, my mother was kind of like this. I mean, anything nice, it just went in the drawer because you got to save it for good, right? She was saving it for a special occasion. He said, "Well, I guess this is the occasion." He took the slip from me, put it on the bed with the other clothes that we were taking to the mortician. His hands lingered on the soft material for a moment, and then he slammed the drawer shut. And he turned to me and he said, "Don't ever save anything for a special occasion. Every day you're alive is a special occasion." I remembered those words through the funeral and the days that followed when I helped him and my niece attend to all the sad chores that follow an unexpected death. As many of you know, my family just went through this with my sister's oldest grandson, 35 years old, found on the floor dead, and all the things that had to be attended to. No one expected that. I thought about them on the plane as I returned to California from the Midwestern town where my sister's family lives. I thought about all the things that she hadn't seen or heard or done. I thought about the things she had done without realizing they were special. And I'm still thinking about his words, and they changed my life. I'm reading more and dusting less. I'm sitting on the deck and admiring the view without fussing about the weeds in the garden. I'm spending more time with family and my friends. Whenever possible, life can be, should be, a pattern of experiences to savor, not endure. I'm trying to recognize these moments now and cherish them. I'm not saving anything. We use our good china and crystal for every special event, like losing a pound, or getting the sink unstopped, or the first camellia blossom. And I wear my good blazer to the grocery store now. I'm not saving my good perfume for special parties. Clerks in the hardware stores and tellers at the bank have noses that function quite well. Someday and one of these days are losing their grip in my vocabulary. If it's worth seeing or hearing or doing, I want to see it and hear it and do it now. I'm not sure what my sister would have done had she known that she wouldn't be here for the tomorrow that we all take for granted. I think she would have called her family members and a few close friends. She might have called a few former friends to apologize and mend fences over past squabbles. I like to think she would have gone out for a Chinese dinner for her favorite food. I'm guessing. I'll never know. It's those little things left undone that would make me angry if I knew that my hours were limited. Angry because I put off seeing good friends whom I was going to get in touch with someday. Angry because I hadn't written certain letters that I intended to write one of these days. Angry and sorry that I didn't tell my husband and daughter often enough how I truly love them. I'm trying very hard not to put off, hold back, or save anything that would add luster and laughter to our lives. It would make me angry if I knew my hours were limited, but when I'm honest, I know my hours are limited. And so now I'm practicing. Every morning when I open my eyes, I tell myself, this is special. Every minute, every day, every breath is a gift from God. So we know that. Every day is a gift from God. So please know with me that this, in God's light, we can learn how to live and love in a beautiful way. So I would ask you at this point, take a deep breath, get comfortable in your chair as I speak a spiritual mind treatment, which is an affirmative prayer. I'll say it as I'm in first person like it's for me, but it is also for you. And I know there is but one power in the universe. It is a power of all good. It is joy and love and abundance, kindness, compassion. It has the perfect solution to any perceived dilemma in my life. And I know I am one with it. It experiences life in, through, and as me, in, through, and as its creation. And even though in the past I may have bought into this humanness of being affected by race consciousness, of can't trust anybody, we are meant to suffer, all that kind of stuff. Life's not fair. Why me? And even though I may have done some of that stuff, I now set an intention to fall in love with life. To remember who I am. I'm a vehicle for spirit to experience life in, as, and through me. I choose to be outrageously, deliriously, and ecstatically happy. I choose to be kind and compassionate, loving, grateful. That's how life works. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that my word spoken into law, I know it is done unto me as I believe. So with gratitude, I release these words to the law of mind, knowing that it is already done. Namaste.